Hello everybody and welcome to another video tutorial. Today we'll be addressing a question that some of you had in the past as to how to change the nozzle on the CR10 V3 since the housing is very tight and difficult to disassemble. Well, the good news is that you can do this pretty much as easy as any other machine if you know what to look out for in the process. As always, I'm in no way responsible for any damages that may incur, so do this at your own risk. Before we even begin removing the existing nozzle, we first need to clean out the hot end, and there's a very simple method that I prefer to use for this. The main method I use nowadays is commonly known as a cold pull. Not only is this great for cleaning out your nozzle if it's jammed, but it's also great for clearing out the passageway when doing a nozzle change. Although I do prefer to use TPU while doing this, PLA will work, but you just have to be careful not to snap it in the process. To start things off, if you don't already have filament loaded in your machine, you'll need to preheat the nozzle by doing a prepare plus preheat PLA plus preheat PLA end. Both PLA and TPU will use the same temperature settings in this case. Now with TPU you have the option of tying the end into a knot, which will make it easier to remove later on. So we'll cut a piece off that's long enough to feed through and feed it through the hot end. Just make sure that's a little bit longer so that it extrudes slightly. Remove the part that's extruded from the hot end and begin cooling down the machine by going to prepare plus cool down. The hot end should be at its normal room temperature before continuing to the next step. Once it's cooled down, you restart the heating process while tugging the filament at the same time. As the hot end heats up, any residue will be dislodged when the filament is pulled out at a low temperature. As you can see, I did this process with both TPU and PLA with the same results. Once again, just make sure not to snap the filament while doing this step. For the following steps, here's what I recommend you pick up for the nozzle change. While some of these are optional, most are highly recommended. A ratchet with an extender and bits, needle nose vice grips, magnetic tray, pipe joint tape, and your replacement nozzle. With the nozzle cleaned up, we can now begin swapping the end. So to do this, we'll need some needle nose vice grips. Normally for most machines you don't need the specific tool, however because of how close the hot end assembly is to the components and the difficulty which can be experienced in removing the outer shell, I do highly recommend you pick these up. A small ratcheting socket set is also helpful, however there are more specialized tools out there, so this one isn't a necessity. You want to take a close look underneath to check where the wiring is mainly located, since the last thing you want to do is damage the thermistor or heater cartridge. To do this, we'll raise the hot end assembly up the Z axis by going through the menu system. Go to Prepare, Move Axis, Move Z. We'll set the number high enough to easily access the hot end with our tools. As an extra precaution, I would also recommend putting something on the glass bed just in case you drop a tool on the surface. Anything after this point should be done with at least one glove on your hand to keep from burning yourself. With your vice grips, you'll lock this into the heater block while making sure to avoid any of the delicate wiring that's inside. Luckily, the design of the hot end assembly automatically places these components in an area where they're less likely to get damaged. Here's a picture of how this looks under my machine, but double check just in case before clamping the vice grips in place. The nice thing about using a ratchet which has an extender on it is that the extender helps diffuse the heat far more easily and prevent burning. So you'll unscrew the hot end carefully and remove it from the hot end assembly. Before we begin putting on the replacement, we first want to add some pipe joint tape, since this will help produce a greater seal within the threads and prevent material from oozing out. I personally prefer using the version which is thicker since it requires less wrapping, but that will depend on your preferences. This material can be found at any local hardware store or online, depending on what's more convenient. A very important note is to make sure that the hole isn't in any way covered or that you get any material inside. This can cause some bad nozzle jams, so take care at this step. If it's covered, simply use your tweezers to punch a small hole and roll the material around the edge of the thread. Now we simply screw back in the nozzle, making sure to have it just tight enough to hold into place. Just as you're getting close to finish tightening the hot end, you'll hold onto the vice grips and tighten the hot end, followed by a slight turning of the vice grips to allow for a greater seal. Do not, under any circumstances, over tighten the nozzle since it can snap in the heater block. Simply remove the vice grips and you're ready to go. Also, for those of you who actually want to use this video as a quick guide, keep in mind that I'll be posting a transcript on my main website to make it easier to follow along. Alternatively, please feel free to slow down the video by hitting the gear icon on the bottom right hand corner of your screen to change the speed settings. I hope you guys found this video useful, and I hope to see you guys soon. So thank you and take care.